We couldn't eat in the restaurants in Louisville. We couldn't eat downtown. One day I saw two Africans go in with their robes and their turbans. They couldn't speak English. I heard the man say, "Let them in, they're not Negroes." I said, something's wrong. I can't say it's because I'm black, because they're so black and they're blue, but they went in. So I said, well, I get my Olympic gold medal, then I'll go in. I went and got my gold medal, went back in, ordered 2 cheeseburgers, and they said, sorry, we don't serve Negroes. I said, I don't eat them either, just give me 2 cheeseburgers. And she said, you're getting smart. She called the manager, and he said something about, I don't care who he is. She said, Cassius Clay, I don't care who he is. Anyway, but the idea was I couldn't eat there, so I got so angry. I drove to the Ohio River and stood there and looked at the gold medal, and I could imagine that American flag waving when they played the national anthem when I beat the Pole, the Russian. Dun, 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 dun. And I'm standing with the medal on. Dun, 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 dun. I said, boy, I'm going back to Louisville, and I can eat now. I can go in the restaurants, put them on the spot. They can't put me out there. I'm the champ of the world. I'm in a big country like Rome, representing the United States, one little city named Louisville, and now I done beat the whole world. Boy, dun, dun. They put me out of that restaurant. I said, this medal ain't worth a damn. I've become so frustrated. Now I wish I still had it because I wouldn't become as frustrated now. But at the time, I took that medal and said, it ain't worth nothing, I don't care. I took it off my neck, said, it ain't no good, it ain't. Throw it in the Ohio River. I hear there's problems in Australia just like there are in America and other countries. But to all of those, regardless of you're Australian, whether you're black or white, there's one thing I want you to always remember. It says, when we mistreat others, we are certainly mistreating the artists who created them. If we realize this, it would not be difficult to feel God's presence everywhere. As I repeat, when we mistreat others, we are certainly mistreating the artists who created them. If we realize this, it would not be difficult to feel God's presence.
Diatribe, so we can work this out.
Well, don't take this personally, Romello. It won't work. You do your thing, I do my thing, you know? It won't work. We can't work with Akata.
Akata. What is this Akata shit? Like American? Oh, shit. Cotton picker.
Are you thriving? Section 8? Where are you thriving? Where are your men thriving? I am right next to a prison right now, right? Or should I call it your baby daddy's home?
First thing is, what culture does America have? Okay, because I believe that somebody. Let's be for real here.
Bro, the black Americans are the culture, maybe baby mama culture. You know, baby single women having 3 kids. That's probably their culture. Or the numbers of the highest incarcerated black young men in America. That's their culture. I don't know. Is it the pim culture? The gang banging culture? Is that the culture? Bro, the black American culture is about wearing, let's say, wearing the Nikes, wearing just they want to be on the trend game, you know? These are the culture.
No, I'm sorry. I can't do Americans. I need somebody with culture. I'm sorry.
Black
Americans in this country are the only groups. They have no culture. It depends on who you meet, where you meet them. 2 value systems in the African American culture. Name 2 taboos in the African American culture system. Name 2 traditions, by the way, in the African American culture system. You have no culture. Nancy, you've been here, born here. Why would you be surprised if I say African Americans don't have a culture? What, twerking?
Empire ubanze kagudye mu empire 24/7 ukabiri yeah uguudide apart together.
Guys, I don't think American people know
where they actually come from. Like when you ask them where are they from, they'll be like, oh, I'm from Atlanta, or I'm from Tennessee, but they don't actually know where they come from.
Where you from? I'm from Louisiana. Before that? What you mean? Oh, never mind. What you mean before that? Like before that, like where your ancestors from? Oh,
so for instance, I would meet African immigrants who would speak about African Americans.
Oh, bad.
They would just be like, why don't they like they're like Republican
they're like
in their
mean
vibes.
White people. That's exactly.
Let me tell you something about Black Americans.
Don't crack me up with this, bro.
They don't want to
I've
work.
Heard this, yes.
They don't go to school.
Right.
They love to do crime.
All of these axes. They
love to do crime. They love to do crime. Let me tell you something.
They love to do crime.
They are not African American. They are just American. I don't know why they put African. The way they are dressing their.
Why do African Americans hate the idea of being African so much? I never really understood it. It's like they make it a point to prove that we are nothing like you. We look nothing like you. Y'all can never be us. Completely different. And it's funny because you are literally one of us, removed through slavery. That's it.
I had a realization that I am not a part of the culture. I'm a observer of the culture and a sort of sometimes a participator in the culture.
And when you first hear that, isn't that hard to hear?
It's hard to hear.
It's hard to hear.
It's very hard to hear.
Because that's not what you thought it was.
Right.
You felt like you were in there.
No, hearing this right now is like.
But when you call a spade, nigga, my culture is compa and guyad. No matter how much I love rap.
Hurt me, bro.
No matter how much I love rap, my culture isn't cornbread and ham hocks.
Right.
Even though I fuck with it.
But
I'm a sauce wine nigga.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You was born in Haiti or you was born here?
I'm born
here.
here.
We're born here.
Yeah.
But the culture and the foundation of what they stand on has already been laid before we got here, right? So when we come here, we getting the Jordans and we getting the thing, we watching Fresh Prince, and that's us observing the culture and then mimicking the culture to a certain degree. We're not of the culture.
And because we look like them, and
even
because
though
they invite us in and feel like home.
Yeah, even though, bro, this conversation fucked me up, Chris.
A lot of Nigerians that travel abroad got this talk from their family, where they will sit you down and tell you, you're going there. Don't go and talk to those Black Americans, though. You just go and get pregnant. You get into drugs. You become gang banging. They give you that talk. That just go to the white community, find a nice place. They just go and be decent. Stay with the white people. They give you that talk. So when you enter America, you already have a perception of African Americans. You judge them. And of course, they can see that judgment in your behavior towards them. And they see how you are almost like yes master to the Oyimbos. They see, they're not blind. So I know I got that talk. And a lot of Nigerians got that talk. So we are over there, we are doing well, we are doctors, we are building houses, we are feeling like, yeah, so we come to the land of the living, we are the land of the plenty, and we are doing well. Forgetting that some people sacrificed.
Hello, you guys. Welcome to the Heirloom Project. This is a brand new platform that I've created to keep you guys culturally, ethnically, politically, and socially informed, especially as it pertains to Black American ethnicity and ethnic identity. I feel like it's time that we start setting the record straight. And I know there are plenty of other platforms and pages and brands that are doing the same line of work that I am committing myself to. To me, it seems like the general confusion is a misunderstanding between race, ethnicity, and nationality, and conversations surrounding Black American or Black or African American or Soulaan or whatever it is you want to call us as an ethnicity. So what I have built is like a twofold model that breaks down what makes up an ethnicity, or to be more specific, the ethnicity side deals with all the things that make up an ethnicity, and the ethnocide side breaks down everything that attacks or diminishes or denigrates or, discredits an ethnic identity, okay? So we just gonna get right into it. Hopefully y'all feel me today and learn something in the end. Again, this is my very first YouTube video, so don't forget to like and comment and subscribe. I got some very, very, very good stuff coming for y'all, okay? Because this is my passion. This is something that has been instilled in me since I was a child, so I know what I'm talking about. Got degrees to prove it, so let's just get right into it. And ethnogenesis is the process by which a new ethnic group forms. Through the fusion of diverse ancestral lineages, shared historical experience, and the creation of a distinct cultural, linguistic, and social identity that gains recognition within a broader society or state. It involves both attributional dimensions, that is, internal inheritance like DNA, ancestry, lineage, heritage, culture, etc. And relational dimensions, which are external recognitions, interactions, and experiences like race or racism, nationality or nationalism, law, and things like that. And ethnogenesis is not a single moment, but a continuing process of formation, consolidation, and renewal. It completes only when a people possess biological continuity, internal cultural coherence and continuity, and civic and legal personhood acknowledged by their host society. The problem today is people misapply the concept of ethnogenesis to justify appropriation of certain cultures, primarily as you see with Black Americans by non-American global Black populations. They claim we are all the same people to erase distinct ethnic outcomes of both slavery and colonization. They use it as a racial or migration term instead of the socio-cultural process that it is. So the attributional dimension of ethnicity is the formation of collective identity from biological, familial, and cultural continuity. Ethnic identity here is internal, substantive, and refined. It is a seed-to-soul inheritance of various elements of ethnic identity. Here are 8 of those elements: DNA, ancestry, genealogy, lineage, family history, heritage, enculturation, and acculturation. So here is the model that I created. Well, this is the ethnicity side of the model. And basically, it's a concentric model that explains the attributional layers and how it differentiates from the 2 relational layers of ethnicity. So as you can see, the attributional layer that we just talked about is the innermost layer of ethnicity. And there, like I said, it includes DNA, ancestry, genealogy, lineage, family history, heritage, enculturation, and acculturation. Each layer passes life, memory, and humanity into the next. Now I'm going to pretty much define each of these elements that are inside the attributional layer, and then we can get into the other layers. So DNA is a molecule carrying hereditary information. It is the genetic basis for inherited traits. So next we have ancestry, and ancestry is genetic or genealogical descent, the line of individuals from whom a person is descended, often associated with geographic or population origins. Next, we have genealogy, which is the systematic tracing of family relationships and connections across generations. All right, and next we have lineage, which is probably the most popular term being used with all this delineation going on. Lineage is the direct descent from an ancestor or familial bloodline. After lineage, we have family history, which is just a collection of biographical, historical, and contextual family stories. Then we have heritage. Heritage is the legacy of tangible and intangible traditions, values, and cultural practices passed down. Now, the last 2 elements of the attributional layer both make up culture, but culture is not just one definitive thing. It is a process, just like ethnogenesis is a process. So culture is twofold. In my opinion, culture is twofold. Enculturation is the process through which a people internalize and transmit their own cultural values, customs, language, and worldview to succeeding generations. Acculturation then is the process by which a group adopts or adapts elements from another culture while maintaining its distinct core identity. So that is pretty much what we get when we talk about the attributional layer. I want to emphasize that the attributional layer is internal, meaning it is shared amongst the people within the ethnic group. Understand that the attributional layer is also substantive, meaning that you can't not be a member of the ethnic group and validate or critique adequately and accurately what is cultivated within that ethnic group, because Your ancestry is different. Your genealogy is different. Your DNA is even different to a certain degree. The family histories are different. The heritage is different. The enculturation and what your parents and family instill in you is different. And the acculturation, meaning the people who are around you, the groups that are around you and how they influence or how you both mutually adopt and adapt to each other's culture and customs. All of that plays a role. You can't just interject about an ethnic identity and what goes on within this attributional layer. And this is why in diaspora war conversations, Black Americans are telling y'all, you are not eligible to speak on what we identify as or what we deem as best for our community and our ethnic group in this country. You can't speak for that. You know, you don't have a connection on an ancestral level, on a family level, on a soul level. You don't have a connection, so you can't, speak for them. But we obviously will get into that a whole lot more as I continue to post videos and content on this page. What people seem not to understand is that ethnicity is understood from the inside looking out and from the outside looking in. Now, as we progress into the relational dimensions of ethnicity, as you can see, ethnicity sits on the outside of the attributional layer. I mainly did this because internally, Black Americans are not and do not have to identify themselves by ethnicity amongst each other. Usually we are identifying ourselves by who our parents or grandparents or other family members are, or maybe something like your neighborhood or the city that you grew up in, or other things that I'm sure are worth gatekeeping. The point is that ethnic identity is such a big deal because the world is made up of thousands, maybe even millions of various ethnic groups. Ethnicity seems to only be quote unquote activated when living around those who are not of the same lineage, family, upbringing, etc., and therefore not quite cut from the same cloth as you. I want to be clear that differences are okay. These diaspora disasters, as I like to call them, are all because people who are outside of this internal so-called nucleus of ethnicity or ethnic identity seem to not be okay with the differences. I can't speak for y'all, but my mama taught me that everybody ain't your friend, okay? And everybody can't speak for you or tell you about yourself, right? So conversations about ethnicity and what constitutes an ethnicity either happen because of or pertaining to situations where ethnic differences are apparent and at times controversial. So there are two relational layers that overlap and wrap around the innermost attributional layer that we just broke down, okay? These relational layers speak to the reality the ethnic groups live in. Their culture and identity is generated and refined inside the attributional layer, but it gets challenged, observed, policed, appropriated, assimilated, exploited, etc. in the relational realms, so to speak. So the relational dimensions of ethnicity are external and definitive. Without legal recognition, an ethnicity remains socially invisible or undefined. The relational dimensions are defined by public recognition and legal definition of that identity through society's institutions, such as race, which is an utter social construct, of course, policy, citizenship, and national belonging. So when we look at this model, it again should be obvious that all the humanity and continuity is cultivated within the attributional layer. And justice, belonging, vindication, and all other interactions with the world happen outside of the attributional layer. Just to put things into more perspective for you guys, racially, the world might look at you and assume or even make an educated guess that you are a Black person, a white person, an Asian person, whatever, right? In the outside world, nationality-wise, all they got to do really is ask you where you from, where you was born at, or where your citizenship is at, right? Ethnically, people might be able to tell what you are, or you might be able to tell them what you are, but that doesn't mean that the outside world had anything to do with cultivating your culture or your ethnic practices, right? Or your ethnic identity. They had nothing to do with that. But when we hone back in on the definitions and differentiations of ethnicity, race, and nationality, you start to see that these outside layers or these outside elements, they are less debatable and I guess easier to prove, easier to validate than what goes on in the attributional layer. Despite the fact that these terms are less debatable, they are heavily misconstrued and misused in these so-called diaspora wars. Non-ethnic Black Americans can become very bothered when Black Americans are able to articulate the difference in terms of their identity and their experiences. But the vast majority of us don't care what the world has to say about who we identify as and who we were raised to be and what we create in this world and what the world loves that we create, you know? What's done is done as far as our ethnogenesis. We here and we ain't going nowhere and it just is what it is, right? People and their speculations and their opinions and their malice and vitriol towards us doesn't change the fact that we have had an ethnogenesis. Regardless of who you dislike in the Black American political or socio-political spaces, regardless of who you like or dislike or who you agree with or disagree with, it simply is what it is. So now we are going to go on and define these three central terms of so-called diaspora wars and ethnic wars. So ethnicity is group identity based on shared heritage, history, culture, and lineage. Race is a social construct categorizing individuals by perceived physical traits. It has no biological basis. And lastly, nationality is the legal/political belonging in a sovereign state. It determines your civic or civil rights. Our theory is that ethnicity functions as a chain of interdependence. It is not a menu of options. If any link in the attributional layer is falsified, the entire system collapses and any of the three elements in the relational layers become debatable. The, I guess, tricky part about Black Americans, though, is that you can't be a part of the Black American ethnicity and not also be Black racially and a native to a city in the United States. I guess that's what makes us special. But on the flip side of things, like in Latin America, for example, they can be multiracial, but their ethnicity and nationality is likely to be the same. Or with like Black Caribbeans, their ethnicity is Caribbean or Afro-Caribbean, West Indian, etc., right? But their nationality would depend on the island. And majority of them are racially Black. Lastly, if we consider white people, right, it seems as though they are pretty much on one accord when it comes to race, obviously. But their ethnicity and nationality is where things might become conflated or convoluted on the victim side of racism. Because 9 times out of 10, their ethnicity and nationality match, but all we may see is a colonizer or an enslaver, right? They caught on pretty quick, though, that trying to decipher who was the best white out of the race didn't get them anywhere, and they grew stronger in their racist ideologies. Anyway, the point is that ethnicity seems to be the most credible identifier of a people, not race, because it's not scientifically backed and it's arguably just mere speculation, right? We can't really hold such a tight grip onto nationality either outside of civil and human rights, because as a single nation, we can have multiple ethnic groups and multiple races. Ethnogenesis reveals that identity is both inherited and chosen. Identity is a moral covenant built from survival and shared consciousness. The ethnogenesis concept answers the question, who are we, by continuity and covenant, not necessarily by blood purity. This is why Black Americans are such a community-based, family value-based ethnic group. You're not my cousin because our parents are siblings. You're my cousin because you've been through what I have. You identify with me. We cut from the same cloth. We sharing laughs, love, creativity, discipline, and even humbling experiences. Black American ethnogenesis is the divine and historical fusion of many ancestries, reborn into one lineage on U.S. soil. Black American ethnogenesis was completed with legal personhood during the Reconstruction era. Ethnogenesis explains why Black, freedmen, Negro, colored, Black American, Afro-American, Soulaan, and yes, even African American and FBA are all arguably synonymous social expressions or articulations of a true ethnic identity, not just a racial label or a national label.
Oh, I'm black too, so I'm Soulaan. I was born in America, so I'm Black American too. No, that's not how it works.
I want to emphasize this part because it's sort of like a thesis for Black American ethnic identity. So 400 to 500 years ago, people from dozens of West and Central African ethnic groups were mixed, sold, renamed, bred, and forced into one population. Over time, these distant African ancestries became interwoven and blended through contact with European and indigenous bloodlines. This Black American lineage has its own culture, surnames, bloodlines, and places of origin in the United States. This demonstrates that people created through enslavement and survival became a sovereign ethnic group within their own nation. Now here I just outlined some historical trigger points that you guys can research or jog your memory, because I'm sure we all already know about all of this stuff. But in these diaspora conversations, or just these people expressing their disdain for you and your ethnic group and your ethnic identity, you have to be able to fire shots back at their ass. You feel me? So I had outlined some historical trigger points that I'm sure everybody knows, but I just want to go through them real quick. So, of course, the 1500s through 1865 was chattel slavery, where we had forced admixture and our cultural synthesis, right? After slavery in 1865 and the Reconstruction era, that was our attainment of legal personhood that signified that the ethnogenesis was complete. This is where we got the 13th through 15th Amendments and the Freedmen's Bureau. After the Reconstruction era, Jim Crow and just post-Reconstruction tensions were the norm. This is where the challenges to our legal personhood and just high overt racial tensions happen, like the KKK, disenfranchisement, sharecropping, and things like that. In the 20th century, obviously this overlaps with Jim Crow. We had infrastructure, migrations, plenty of movements, and socio-political and cultural exports, like the Harlem Renaissance and the Civil Rights and Black Power movements. So for the last time, what is an ethnogenesis? An ethnogenesis is how a new people is born, not from one tribe or one country, but from the merging of many lineages into a shared culture, history, and destiny. It begins with ancestry, it grows with culture, and becomes complete when those people are recognized as valid in spirit and by policy, law, or another official order. Now, this is just my call for y'all to stay on code as you become more culturally literate and study ethnicities. As a reparative action, we seek to, first of all, recognize and codify Black Americans as a distinct ethnic group under U.S. and international standards. Secondly, we receive, convey, and circulate education that restores lineage, literacy, cultural continuity, and proper gatekeeping. And lastly, we hold in high consideration everyone involved, associated, enthralled, or objected to the concern of Black American ethnic identity, culture, ownership, equity, healing, restitution, or progression. This includes, but is not limited to, lawmakers, educators, faith leaders, cultural historians, and community archivists. Now we have talked about everything that makes up an ethnicity, or how an ethnicity is birthed, right? Now we have to get into the challenges to an ethnic identity or an ethnic group of people. So what is ethnocide? Ethnocide is the deliberate and systematic destruction of the culture and social fabric of an ethnic group. As you can see here, it's the same model. It's just different elements that are filled in to explain how the elements of an ethnicity or ethnogenesis are challenged or even attempted to be annihilated, right? So we're going to start at the bottom like we did with the ethnogenesis side with biological genocide. Biological genocide is the intentional destruction or prevention of a group's biological continuity. Plenty examples of this throughout history, but a few of them are, of course, slave breeding, unconsented medical testing, like especially y'all need to study the history of gynecology, but also what comes to mind is like Henrietta Lacks and things like that. You have the eugenics movement, the Tuskegee study, environmental racism for sure, mass incarceration, medical bias, and maternal mortality rates in Black women. Very disproportionate. Now, next we have the ancestral displacement element in the attributional layer. This deals with forced severance from homeland or origins, or the erasure of geographic or tribal ties. Of course, the examples will be the transatlantic slave trade, the domestic slave trade and chattel slavery, the Trail of Tears, urban renewal and gentrification, and mass incarceration again. Thirdly, we have genealogical erasure, which is the destruction or withholding of family records, kin separation, and renaming. So we have the chattel slavery record suppression. I don't know if y'all have heard, but there have been a lot of accounts of white people like having all the records of like their slaves, and you know, like they keep them as their heirlooms, right? I just feel like that's fucked up, but you know, you can't put none past them folks. So we have the Freedmen's Bureau record gaps, of course. We have the census reclassifications. We have white passing people, or like, you know, like I know y'all have heard of the term like $5 Indians. So like white passing is a thing as well that kind of erases genealogy, and urban renewal also does that as well. So then we have lineage corruption, which is the replacing or contaminating of family lines via imposed identities or blocked inheritance. So what comes to mind when I think of this, my family is from Birmingham, Alabama, my dad's side of the family. And he would tell me all the time, my daddy was born in the 60s. He was born in 1960. And his elders were born like in the 20s, and some of them before that, right? I remember him telling me that they had got an offer for some land or whatever, and then it just turned up missing, like, you know. But yeah, these folks will like block your inheritance, or just pretend like they don't know that this is your people's, and your people's is owed a certain asset, a certain property, certain rights, or whatever. So examples of lineage corruption are chattel slavery, naming and branding, black codes and property or inheritance theft, eugenics, census homogenization and reclassifications, and digital data gaps causing underrepresentation on ancestry websites, etc. Cultural amnesia or dissonance is the systemic silencing of oral history, language, and rituals. Examples of this would be post-Jim Crow education all the way, respectability politics, media standardization, and things like microaggressions, underground blacklisting, and hate crimes. Next, we have cultural theft and commodification, which is something that we experience probably firsthand by a lot of people who are non-ethnic Black Americans. It is the appropriation of sacred forms of ethnic expression and heritage for profit without genuine credit, benefit, or allyship. So it's examples for days with this one. You got blues, jazz, rock and roll. You got blackface. You got Jamaicans claiming they invented hip hop. You got all these non-Black American people using Ebonics and AAVE, stealing our dances, our trends, all of that, and then telling us that they grew up around Black people and shit. You have commercial marketing specialists hired to appeal to Black American audiences, and the list goes on. Next, we have miseducation or education or communication barriers. This disruption of education is mainly defined as dismantling native teaching systems or banning language and knowledge. Of course, we had the slave literacy bans. We've had schools and churches and homes and scholars targeted by entry barriers and the KKK. We've, of course, had Brown versus Board of Education, that whole shebang. We've had standardized testing and deficit framing and defunding of our school systems. The last element of ethnocide in the attributional layer is assimilation pressure. Assimilation pressure is defined as coercion to abandon distinct culture for dominant norms. Pretty much we have like de facto etiquette and docility norms, discriminatory hair, fashion, and language rules in schools or professional spaces, or corporate and media pressure for professional Blackness. Now, what I realized and want to make clear to y'all, like I did on the ethnogenesis side, is that ethnicity, race, and nationality elements are almost untouchable and are heavily reliant on what goes on in the attributional layer. These last three elements of ethnocide that I want to talk about are probably where the most complex debates and confrontations with non-ethnic Black Americans come from, because it reveals the asinine and ridiculous nature of racists and people who simply just don't like us or want to disrespect us, lie on us, and exploit our Black American ethnic identity. I will just go ahead and define these things and also explain why it's really an uphill battle for people who oppose us and our autonomy and our ethnic identity. So first we have ethnic erasure or reclassification, which is denying recognition and collapsing ethnicity into race or nationality. I'm sure within these diaspora conversations, you guys have heard people say the term flat Blackness. That's basically what it is. It's like, well, you just a nigga, so, and we all niggas, and you don't have a culture, and you don't, we all Black. If the cops pull us over, they're not gonna know that I'm from another country and you're from here. Yes, they do. They do know. All they gotta do is look at your name or hear your accent or whatever, right? And I know people look at that as giving them clues, but the way I see it, culture is like with this whole model that I'm delivering to y'all, culture is created internally. If you were not raised, if your mama didn't embed this in you, if your granny, your aunties, your uncles didn't embed this in you, you just not gonna have it. And that's just that. But anyway, ethnic erasure and reclassification is not gonna work on Black Americans because Black Americans kept rebuilding cultural distinctiveness, and we will continue to. We've had freedmen institutions. We have the Black church. That alone just trumps everything. We have the Black church. We have HBCUs. Our music and our art and our grassroots politics is very much on code. It's natural. It's not a conscious thing. Like, I'm going to go out of my way to delineate from these people. There has already been a delineation. In my opinion, I feel like the delineation has already been understood. It was first pushed by the non-ethnic Black Americans, right? Y'all saw that the video I put at the beginning of this. It was first pushed by them. It's been pushed by them for years. My parents used to tell me like their firsthand experiences. I used to travel the Caribbean and go on cruises and stuff since I was in the womb. Okay, so I've had these encounters, but I didn't understand it because that's not my culture. I don't sit around and talk and call Black Americans Yanks and Akatas. I didn't grow up like that. That wasn't instilled in me. It was instilled in me to be a child of God, to be proud of who I am, who God created me to be smart, to be resourceful, to be a hustler, to be all of that. That's what was my culture. So when I looked at them, I admired them for their cultural, I guess, autonomy and pride. But it took years for me to recognize how they viewed us and our ethnicity. So the second element in the relational layer of ethnocide is racialization and dehumanization. So this is pretty much defined as assigning hierarchy or stigma by perceived phenotype. It's pretty much just like somebody can identify as a certain race, but to be racialized is inherently to be dehumanized. The Black American response to this and why racialization doesn't really touch us, it don't really faze us, is because we have a history of slave revolts. We have a very proud history and heritage of civil rights and voting rights. We have plenty of self-defining media professionals and platforms. We have ownership and we know who we are. And we even have theological reclamations of our uniqueness and our humanity. So, to be honest, trying to, I guess, denigrate us by saying we're Black or trying to rally us for some cause just because we are all Black, baby, we already recognize that all skin folk ain't kin folk. And we already recognize that racism is white folks' problem. That don't have nothing to do with us. That's their problem. They got to take that up with God, right? So the last and final slide of the day, the last element of ethnocide, or I guess the final destination that people who dislike us want us to reach, is a state of statelessness or legal disenfranchisement. This is just the exclusion from citizenship and rights and just flat out being blocked from civic belonging. That ain't gonna happen because the 14th Amendment is already done and over with, baby. Like, that's just, it just is what it is. And on top of that, Black American advocacy and heritage continues to protect our full civic belonging and our civil rights. As much as we had to fight, our parents, well, my parents, at least, I know I have had a lot of friends who have older parents like I did. And we would sit and share stories. I went to a small all-Black Christian school. I went to, like, you know, I'm really, it's in me, not on me, baby. So we have these stories. We have this memory embedded in our identity. That is not something you can just stroll your happy ass in and just erase. It's not gonna happen. So yeah, I think that's all that I have for y'all today. Again, please like, comment, and subscribe, and tell me what you think or what kind of content or analyses y'all want me to conduct. I would absolutely love to. Like I said, this is my passion. This is my heart, my soul. I just love my people so bad. I just love y'all so much. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye.